Item number 10, conduct of business. Receive a report and provide direction to staff regarding the potential closure of Memory Lane. We do have speaker cards. If you would like to speak, please fill out a card so the clerk can give it to us, and we'll call you by name. And I'm going to give, if you're going to speak individually, I'll give you 2 minutes. If you have a group speaker, we'll give you 5. Who would like to start?
Mr. Mayor, if I may,
Yes.
we have a short staff report first.
You're right.
We'll be calling
right
for
over
public
that.
comment thereafter.
All right.
A little antsy.
All right. We'll give folks just a minute or two to fill out those speaker cards. Thank you for doing that. And while they're doing that, I'll just introduce myself to the members of the public. My name is Mark Zaffarano. I'm the city attorney. I'll be delivering a little presentation tonight, along with my colleague Laura Russell, who's one of the associate planners at the city. Before we start, I'd like to start by thanking all of you for coming to our meeting tonight. I understand that you all have busy schedules, you all have things that you'd probably rather be doing, and we appreciate your taking your time to engage with both city staff and the city council on this important issue. I'd also like to thank the staff that's sitting next to me and behind me, all of whom have been involved in one way or another over the past year to year and a half in the Memory Lane issue. All of the department heads have had something to do with the staff report that you see in front of you. If you haven't taken the time to read through it, I recommend that you do. There's a lot of information in there that took staff a lot of work and effort to compile, and we're very pleased that we could present it to you tonight. So before we start, I have just a couple of housekeeping matters. I'll be doing a short oral report, as I mentioned, with Laura Russell, our associate planner. And after that, we'll be opening it up to the public so public can comment on the issues that we've raised. There are copies available back here of the actual surveys that some of you may have submitted to the city. Thank you for doing that if you did. We want to make sure that we keep all of your personal information just that, personal. So we did take the liberty of redacting identifying information such as names, addresses, emails, telephone numbers from those surveys before making them public, but they are here and available otherwise. And also available today are a series of what we'll call school loop postings, which is a mechanism for parents to communicate with their school that was just provided to us today by the attorney, Mr. Corey, on behalf of Parkside Intermediate School. And that was a series of postings that was done sometime back in December. And so we appreciate receiving those today, and those are also available. We did also redact any names and personal information from those emails as well. If you haven't filled out a speaker slip and you do want to speak, please do so. Now's your time to do that. We want to make sure that everybody has time to talk and to tell us what you think. We want to hear everything you have to say. It's also okay to say that you agree or disagree with a prior speaker who maybe have made the same point that you did. We'd also request that everybody in the audience be courteous to each other and refrain from calling out, clapping, and doing those things, because it is difficult for the television to keep track of that, and we also understand that we're here in front of a television audience. So with that, let me begin. All right, there we go. I'm a novice at using the clicker here, so please excuse me if I make a mistake while I'm going through this. Tonight's presentation will focus on 4 topics, and they're up on the board there for you. What is Memory Lane? Why are we discussing it tonight? How is it used? And what are the options that we should think about with respect to the lane? So first, I'd like to just take a second and tell you a little bit about what Memory Lane actually is. And some of you probably know it's an east-west pedestrian bicycle-only way that's owned by the city. So all 3 segments are owned in fee title by the city. There are public utility easements under the lane, and notably there's a sewer line that runs between Linden and Poplar in that easement. So as all of you probably know, it runs roughly perpendicular to El Camino from Elm to Poplar to Linden and then across the Grace Honda parking lot. So here's a little bit of history. It was established in 1939, quite a long time ago, for public use as a pedestrian walk. That's what the subdivision map says. And it's mentioned in our general plan as a pedestrian emphasis zone. And it's also mentioned in our draft transit corridor plan, which suggests that the lane be enhanced for additional pedestrian and bicycle use to make that east-west connection to the downtown. And as you'll see later tonight, the lane is in fact used by many residents. So in December of 2010, we had 14 residents who lived adjacent to the lane, and Grace Honda owner requested that the lane be permanently closed. And they sent the city council some letters indicating that there was vandalism, graffiti, fights, drugs, alcohol, and other negative behavior. So staff spent a great deal of time researching their concerns and developed some alternatives. And some of the things that the city did in response to those concerns is they implemented increased maintenance of the lane. I actually walked there the other day, and it looked great. There was no garbage anywhere or any other indication. The police department continued to do passing checks, and they actually intensified that effort within the last year, and heightened officer awareness of the problems that were occurring there. In October 2011, you might remember, the mayor appointed a subcommittee to meet with the concerned residents, the individuals who expressed some concern, as well as the Grace Honda owner. And that subcommittee, which consisted of the mayor and then Vice Mayor Mr. Salazar, met twice with those residents. And in between that time, city staff also worked to develop some additional alternatives. The subcommittee at that time, after having met with those concerned residents, considered a temporary trial closure, also indicated they wanted to survey a larger group of people because we only had a small number of residents in front of us, and then return the matter to the council for a full discussion. And that's why we're here tonight. So at this point, what I'd like to do is turn the presentation over to Laura Russell, our associate planner, to discuss the survey results. She'll go through those with you, and then I'll pick it up at the end.
Thank you. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, and members of the public. Staff conducted a survey to get the residents' opinions and understand better how they use Memory Lane. The survey area was bounded by Genevan, El Camino Real, Crystal Springs, and Oak Avenue, as shown in the map on the screen. It really was just a survey of the immediate neighborhood around the lane. It did not include other potential users. For example, there may be families living in the Bel Air neighborhood that may use it to reach destinations to the west, but we were looking for the opinions and the usage of those residents that live close by. We received 134 surveys by the February 22nd deadline, which is a 34% response rate, and we do consider that to be quite high for a community survey such as this. The survey form itself is attached to the staff report and available to the public, and we would like to note that the survey did not include arguments on either side of the issue. We were seeking individual opinions from the residents about their experience using the lane and also how much they use it. We did also receive 5 surveys after the survey deadline. So turning now to some of the results of the survey. 81% of people that completed the survey said that they use Memory Lane. The usage is pretty consistent across the 3 blocks. So we asked residents also how often they use it per month on average, and this was a fill-in question, and then staff grouped them together according to the usage. And we found that the usage was quite high, with 58 households using it 1 to 9 times per month, 19 households using it 10 to 19 times per month, and 28 households using it 20 times or more. We also did have several people report that they use it every day. Residents were asked where they're going when they use Memory Lane. What are the most common destinations? So people filled in multiple destinations, so we took a count, kind of a tally, of the places that they frequently go. The most common destinations were commercial, such as shopping, with 54 people citing that as a destination, or Walgreens with 17 people. There were also a lot of people that went downtown and to some downtown restaurants specifically. There was also a large number of people, 42, that use it for walking, jogging, or for walking their dogs, so for exercise or recreation. The bus and Caltrain were also common destinations. Memory lane is also used as a common path for Parkside students. As we understand it, they walk down Niles, Clark, and then Memory Lane to connect to El Camino Real. Staff did 3 site visits from approximately 2:30 to 3:30 in the afternoon, which is the time when students are walking home from school. Staff observed up to 60 students using the lane each day. It took about 12 minutes for the students to walk through. So from the time that the first group of students started to walk through until the last group of students was about 12 minutes. There are also adults that happened to be using the lane at the same time as the students, and when staff talked to those adults, they did favor keeping the lane open. So this chart describes the results of the question, do residents support closure? So this chart is also an attachment to the staff report, and residents were asked if they support closure, and they were asked by individual blocks. We didn't know if the results would be different by the different blocks, and they turned out to be fairly consistent across the 3 blocks. So if I could take a second to explain this. The blue on the left are people that definitely support closure. Yellow are people that probably support closure. Green are people that probably do not support closure. And then purple are the people that would like it to stay open. So do they support closure? No. So as an example, in block 1, 6% definitely would want to see it close, 15% probably, 9% probably not, and 70% would like it to stay open. So if we combine the people that definitely support closure and probably support closure, we see that up to 21% of respondents overall would favor closure of at least 1 block, or they likely would. So 21% of respondents would like to see at least some portion closed. These residents reported graffiti, vandalism, loitering, alcohol use, trash, and fights, among some other concerns. Some people were concerned in their comments that closing the lane could actually lead to more problems in the future, and they did ask what would happen if closure were to go forward. In the comments, some residents also expressed that Memory Lane has outlived its usefulness, and even though some people use it and found it charming, they understand why adjacent neighbors may be concerned. So again, when we combine the numbers for all 3 blocks, we see that about 79% of residents favor keeping it open. 10 of the respondents specifically noted that it is used by seniors in the area, as well as people with disabilities. There are also many long-term residents that noted they have used it for many years, as much as 25 or 30 years. Many people consider it to be an amenity, as a shortcut, and also as a part of San Bruno history. Several residents noted that they would like to know more about the concerns and wanted to understand what the issues were that were happening in their neighborhood. They also expressed concern for the neighbors that live immediately on the lane. But overall, many people did comment that they like using Memory Lane. So I'd like to turn it back now over to the city attorney for additional comments.
Thank you very much, and I'll close just by noting a couple of things. We were, of course, very concerned when the residents, some of the residents told us that they had experienced a number of problems on the lane. And so one of the only sources of information that city staff has about that are reports to the police department. So our staff did an extensive analysis of every single call for service to the San Bruno Police Department from 2006 to 2011 from all of the 14 residents who sent in letters expressing concern about the lane. And what we found was that over that period of 2006 to 2011, there were a total of 44 calls generated by those residents, average of about 6 per year. We're also actually pleased to report that in 2011, there were only 4 calls for service to the police department, and it seems that the redoubled efforts of the police department staff may have helped in reducing those numbers, and that those efforts may have paid off. We also noted that of those 44 calls over the 7-year period, all 44 of those calls were generated by 5 households out of the 14 that sent letters to the city council. And we also wanted to look at what those calls were about. And the vast majority, almost 2/3, were graffiti. We understand that was a major concern. Vandalism, 20% of the calls from those 5 households indicated there was some vandalism. And then 7% had to do with loitering or unsavory activities, people standing around in the lane, drinking, and those kinds of things. We had limited data about when the calls came in, understanding that when the call came in doesn't necessarily mean when the activity occurred, but we found that about 80% of the calls came in the afternoon hours between 1:30 and about 6:45. So that's the best data that we could find from the police department regarding all of those calls for service since 2006. So I'd just like to close by talking about some of the options for memory lane that are under consideration. So one of the alternatives is to make some improvements to the lane, and some of those options include either fencing and or vegetation that would provide additional separation of the public space, which is memory lane, from the private space. And I think I want to pause for a second and note that there is a lot of complexity about this particular issue, because as you know, some of the homes have a 0 lot line. The wall is right up on the lane, and other homes do have a fence and then have a little bit of a setback. So those conditions vary not only block by block, but also vary among the houses on the same block. So it's a little bit of a challenge to try to figure out exactly what could be done in terms of improvements. One of the other things that staff spent quite a bit of time on is some sort of enhanced monitoring of the lane. I think you've already seen that some of that has already paid off by only 4 calls for police service in 2011. And certainly city staff can consider doing that, or consider some other combination of monitoring, of adult monitoring of the lane. And then finally, there was some discussion about some street improvements where the lane intersects with a public street. So there was a complaint that sometimes kids run out into the street, and it might be a safety hazard. So we also looked at making some improvements with some signage, maybe a little bit of additional red curb on both sides, so that way both the pedestrians and the vehicles have a little bit more of a sight distance. And we could also do some additional striping or other things on the actual roadway surface. So a number of those things were considered. Another option, as I discussed before, and something that the subcommittee considered after speaking with the residents that attended 2 of its meetings, is some sort of a trial closure to see if there was a decrease in the number of calls for service or a decrease in the number of complaints. So that was considered, and you can certainly talk about that more this evening. I think that the staff would need to do some additional research on what sort of physical barrier would actually work, given the configuration of the lane and how it's set up differently from block to block. So that's something we'd have to think about. I'd also wanted to note, important to note, that the 14 residents who came to the city, did request that the lane be permanently closed. So for tonight, that ends my staff report. We have an opportunity, if the council wants to ask us some questions, we're happy to try to answer them. We may not be able to answer every single question that either you or maybe members of the public have tonight, and if that's the case, we'll certainly take them down and come back at a subsequent meeting and give you the answers. We'd certainly like to hear from everyone who have waited patiently through my rather lengthy presentation. I apologize. We'd recommend that the City Council direct the staff to explore one or more of the alternatives, or consider additional review at a subsequent meeting, or discontinue consideration of closure if that's your desire as well. So with that, I'll end my presentation and take any questions.
Well, thank you, Mark and Laura, for a pretty concise and detailed report. Michael and I were on the subcommittee, still are on the subcommittee, but I'd like to hear unless Michael has something specific, what the rest of the council would like to discuss. Do you have any questions?
So if there are any questions, we'd be happy to take those now. Otherwise, you can open it up to the public. Michael?
No, I don't have anything specific.
Okay. As I said, we have quite a crowd here tonight, so I'm going to limit the comments to 2 minutes. I'd like you to say your name and just your street, not your address. And the first person to speak was, it looks like May Yasser. May here?
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you want to go first?
I certainly do.
All right, there you go.
Well, I didn't get a comment card, George.
Yeah,
so-
that's why I came tonight.
Okay. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, my name is George Corey. I am at 700 El Camino in Millbrae. I represent each and every owner who lives on Memory Lane. I represent 2 owners who live 1 door off Memory Lane. I speak tonight for Honda car dealership in part. Ms. Huma Yemen is here. Her attorney could not be here, but asked that I make the formal representations for her. And then, after I complete that, each of the homeowners will, if the mayor would permit it to be done that way, will come up and point out to you where they live. These are names on the chart here. Where they live on Memory Lane, and help you understand what the problem is. Now, I did not participate in the survey. Nobody asked me what questions should be on it. I did not see the results until early yesterday morning. But if anyone had asked me, will you prepare a set of questions for this survey, I would have said, I think you only need 1 question. Would you favor closing Memory Lane if you knew that every single resident on that little street feels threatened, in terror, has had their windows broken, graffiti on their walls, condoms in the street, everything as badly as it can get? Would you favor closing Memory Lane if they asked you to do so? I feel, knowing the people of San Bruno, and I know many of them, that you wouldn't see an 80% against closing. You'd see 99 and 9/10% closing it. Nothing else makes sense to me. So, however you prepare the survey, however you do it, I feel it needs to make more sense in relation to the goal that is being sought. Now, there is another organization who had not even been mentioned tonight, and they attended the meetings with the subcommittee. The school from whence all these young children come and create the havoc that occurs to my clients desperately wants it closed. And they are here tonight to tell you so. And that is so because it's an uncontrollable situation. Not for the casual walker who goes shopping sometime when school's out, but if you live there, you live in dread. That's the story you're going to hear. And then we had told the council committee this before. You have an auto dealership there. Probably the 2nd or 3rd greatest tax income to the city of San Bruno. I don't know if they're bigger than Tanforan or not, but they're big. Part of Memory Lane runs right through their car dealership. They, like every other dealership, and this has already been explained, and this is what Ms. Yemen asked me to tell you tonight, they have been instructed by Honda that they must rebuild their facility, that the scope of the rebuilding must cover that space that is now Memory Lane. If they don't do so, they cannot stay in that location. And that this city stands the risk of losing a taxpayer of that magnitude because it's not willing to close Memory Lane. Wait, excuse me. It may not be willing to close Memory Lane. Those of you who understand anything at all about the car business know that a great deal of the matters on the facilities are dictated by the company, that is the manufacturer, not by the dealership itself. It is not at liberty to build where it wants or the way it wants or even the form or shape it wants. It will meet certain mandates. In this case, Ms. Yemen is here to represent to you that they have told her that the footprint must cover that area which is memory lane. Right. Now, what you have in front of you is little memory lane, 8 homes on that lane, a 10-foot wide, otherwise very attractive little stroll. But if you live there, and if people throw rocks through your windows, I think Sam brought some rocks with him tonight that have gone through his windows. When you find things on the ground that you are not happy to find, when your house is graffitied, when it is egged, you start to feel it's not such a comfortable neighborhood to be in. And when the school officials beg that the lane be closed because that is a place where the kids go to fight. And if you were to look at the survey that was presented with the children talking, you will see that they understand that that's a place where people go to fight from the school. And I'll let the school take it from there because they have their own feeling about the lane. Now, there's one other photo I'm sorry, a photograph I'd like to show you. And I'm sorry I don't have the fancy, what do you call that?
Excuse me, George?
PowerPoint.
George, we want to wrap it up here pretty quick. We have a lot of speakers.
What I wanted to show you was that here's the dealership. There's the school. You took 400 homes for not even a full long block of memory lane.
People can't hear you.
Oh, yeah. Forgive me, Jim. Let me come around here and say it all over again. What you have on the photograph are about probably 600 homes. When whoever made this survey made it for 400 homes to cover this 2 small block area and expect people anywhere to know anything about the situation seems to me unreasonable and unrealistic. All right. Unrealistic, not unreasonable.
All right, we're going to ask the people on these
you
cards.
Want me to hurry up?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
All right, I'll hurry up.
If you represent a group, you're supposed to have 5 minutes, so you're way over, but this is important.
You know, we
so-
got a whole group of people. We've
And
had
that's
2
why
long
they're going to talk
subcommittee
individually.
meetings.
Right, let's get rolling here.
So, from here, each of the homeowners will come, and with your permission, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to have those 8 homeowners who are most affected be the first people to speak.
Well,
You got your...
If they have a card, I don't know exactly. It
Well, I
just
can
says,
have them come up,
you know.
let them line up here, let them go. You're giving them only 2 minutes. I was told yesterday I could have 3 for each person. Will the homeowners come forward, please? Just line up, and then you'll take it everyone one at a time. The first one will be Sam Azar. He's the gentleman who brought this case to me some time ago.
Mr. Mayor, council members,
Sam, excuse me, did you fill out a card?
I did.
You did, okay. I'm just trying to weed these out of here so we don't do double duty here. But go ahead. Go ahead.
Sam Azar,
Okay.
one of the ones that are affected by this. My home butts Memory Lane. I lived there for 35 years. I grew up in San Bruno, went to all the schooling in San Bruno, from Allen to Parkside to Cappuccino to Skyline. The things that have been going on for the last probably 7 or 8 years, it's something that I don't think anybody else in San Bruno has been. Got it. Is it on?
Yeah.
The graffiti, watching the kids fight, cars in the middle of the night. The thing was brought up to the city about 3 years ago when I was told that that easement is used for handicapped, disabled people. It didn't have any handicapped ramps. 3 years ago, they were placed there. There's no poles in the center of those things, so now we have vehicles run up and down every night, or those motorized Vespas, the scooters. The last incident that happened was when my 9-year-old mom was sitting in the kitchen, and I'm not talking about a rock. Everybody's saying a rock. This rock was thrown through the window. the first time. The second time, the police, I asked them to take it to see if they can get fingerprints. They have it. The caretaker that takes care of my mom refused to work there. My mom will never step 1 foot in the kitchen to have her meal. She's afraid. I don't know what you guys are going to do. She's completely afraid of going in the kitchen. She's here. She could speak. She speaks a little English, she'll tell you. She's afraid. The gal that used to take care of her refused to work there anymore. The last incident was the egging of the house. So, you know, the attorney said that the calls of service went down. We're tired of calling. After the kids leave, we call 911. By the time the police, I'm not saying that they don't arrive, they do arrive, but the kids are gone. All the problems are already gone, left. And we're asking for your help.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council members. Thank you for the opportunity to address you this evening. My name is Mike Echeverry. I live on Linden Avenue on the southeast corner of Memory Lane. I've lived in this house for 13 years, and over the 13 years, I've witnessed a slow deterioration of Memory Lane. Recently, I personally witnessed the following illegal acts: drug use, public urination, graffiti both on the fence lines that line the alley and on my house. Sexual acts by minors. Most recently, my house has been egged 3 times in the last 4 months. Approximately 1 year ago, I witnessed a male juvenile suspect kick his foot through my fence, causing 2 wood panels to break in half. I chased after the suspect and was able to hold him until San Bruno police arrived to take him into custody. There have been countless unreported incidents to the police department where items such as trash, rocks, sports equipment, and even a scooter were hurled into my backyard. I've personally taken on the responsibility of walking through the alley on a weekly basis and painting over any graffiti that has been left on the fence during the week. These are some of the incidents that all of us who live adjacent to Memory Lane have had to endure. All of us in the area live with the question, what's next? I personally fear for the safety of my family, my neighbors, and my pet. I find it hard to believe that there is another place in the city of San Bruno that has a greater concentration of criminal mischief. Some could argue that the alley was there long before I bought my house and I should have known what I was getting into. But I bought my house knowing that there was always a chance that something could happen on any given street. What I didn't sign up for was when I bought my house was the constant flow of criminal mischief that permeates from Memory Lane. The fact is that individuals who are looking to cause trouble know that Memory Lane is sheltered from view and an easy place to get away from criminal activity. My neighbors and I have worked with City Hall and the Police Department to come up with solutions to these issues, but unfortunately our efforts have yielded negative results. It is unfortunate, but I believe it's time to close Memory Lane. I know this may cause inconvenience to some of our community who use Memory Lane as a cut-through, but I also believe you, as City Council members, hold a responsibility and a priority to help ensure that all San Bruno residents can live in peace and safety in their homes. As it stands right now, we who live next to Memory Lane do not feel safe, and we respectfully request your assistance in restoring our right to live in peace. I'd like to thank you in advance for your consideration of this matter.
Thank you. Carol, is there a light I can see as 2 minutes, or is there a light I can see? Or? Oh, well. Slide it over. Thank you. Perfect.
Can you see that?
Perfect.
Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor and Councilman, my name is Gary Souza. Excuse me, I'm a little nervous. I've lived next door to Memory Lane for about 60 years. I've used Memory Lane since it was a dirt path. So why am I so adamant about closing it? A small percentage of the school children are behaving in an unacceptable manner. I cannot use Memory Lane. I'm there, excuse me. I'm sorry. I'm intimidated by the boys and the girls' looks, actions, the way they use the 4-letter word to me, to each other. Their attitude is they can do or say anything that they please, and we can't do anything about it. The destruction of property, painting, tagging fences, breaking the fences, throwing rocks at property, and each other. It's escalated to boulders through windows. They trash the alleyway with food, condoms, paper, alcohol bottles, cans, general garbage. We need to close Memory Lane before the taxpayers have to pay for lawsuits or property damage or worse, life. If you think that I was a bit overboard, ask my neighbors. They broke their kitchen window 3 times. Let's please close this before it ends on a bad note. Thank you very much.
My name is Dennis Martinez, and I live at Popular.
Just point, Joe, because unless you speak to the microphone, we're not going to know. So.
This house right here.
All right.
I have the same problems. House being egged all the time. Fence boards getting kicked in.
Joe, excuse me. Start again for the benefit.
I
of
have the same problems with the fence boards being kicked in, houses being egged. Before I let my kids play out in the backyard, I have to go in the backyard and take a look around and make sure that there's nothing out there that they're gonna, whatever, because there are all kinds of stuff comes over the fence. I had to remove my windows on the ground floor because I was tired of those getting broken in and everything too. So I just stuck them over. Pretty much the same thing. Tired of the vandalism, tired of everything. Sometimes I'm out in the backyard when the kids come through and they're bouncing up and down. I don't really want to say anything to them because then they'll come and retaliate against my house. So I just kind of let them go, and I've made numerous complaints, and same thing, nothing really ever seems to go on. A little while back, somebody dumped like a whole big thing of oil down the alleyway. I called it in. Somebody comes out and looks at it and goes, oh, well, gets in a car and drives away. Nothing got cleaned up. I can get somebody out to clean it up. Goes, well, I don't know who to call. So nothing happened, so I had to wait for the rains to come before it all washed down. And in the meantime, those days before the rains came, everybody was walking through it, tracking it through all up and down the alleyway. It's just a mess, and we'd really like to have something done with it. So those are my concerns. Thank you.
Hi, to the council. I'm Ron Gray. I live at 394 Elm. My house is on Memory Lane. My house was built in 1906, and the Memory Lane was created in 1939. So I was there before the Memory Lane. Is it a walkway? Is it an easement? Is it a passageway? Question. But I too have the same problem with graffiti and all. In fact, I have been subpoenaed to go to court because I caught kids doing graffiti. Now I have to take time off work to go to court and swear that this kid did graffiti. But your survey is very, very good, but it's still a little weighted. 12 minutes for the kids to get from point A to point B, but they still have to cross at Jennifer. And so there's no time saving for them to walk through Memory Lane, as far as the same as no time saved to go to Walgreens. So closing part of Memory Lane makes a lot of sense. I would be very happy to close Memory Lane because I have the same problem that all my neighbors have. Thank you.
My name is Vince Bravo. I live at 398 Elm. I'm right next door to Ron. Ron and I have a shared common issue, which is that both of our houses are directly on the alleyway. There's no barrier between the alleyway and the side of our house. The one of the main problems that we've had, we continue to have at our house is 24-hour knocking on the side of our house. Children coming through the way, adults walking through the way. When they knock on the walls of the house, they're knocking on the walls. When they knock on the walls of the alley, they're knocking on the walls of our house. No matter what hour, day or night, we repeatedly hear noise in the alleyway, echoing. Unfortunately, I'm a little surprised that there's been 4 phone calls in 2011. 3 of them must have been from me. One in which I stopped a fight of 7th grader girls who were throwing around the F word, and 35 children stopped in the alleyway right next to my house. I stop the girls from fighting. I deal with children on a regular basis daily. I'm a school teacher, and so I have no problem talking to kids. However, I've never met such disrespect from children before, throwing around words at me, homophobic language here in the alleyway right in front of my own house, things that can't be tolerated here in San Bruno. On top of that, I've also had the side door of my house bashed in twice. It cost me about $300 to repair it the second time. When I asked the principal of the school as well as the police if we could do a little research into who possibly could have done this, I was told that it's a difficult group and it's hard to figure out such things. Working with children for 13 years, I know that we can get to the bottom of figuring out who causes crimes. Kids are quick to snitch on each other. I definitely recommend the closure of this alley. I'm also surprised to see that disabled people use the alley. At 398, between 398, my house and Ron's house, there's no disabled access to the alley there. People would need to use either my driveway or Ron's driveway, which is extremely steep and dangerous, if they wanted to use it and are in a wheelchair. Thanks.
Thank you.
Is Chelsea Bola. I live on 401 Poplar Avenue.
Could you say your name again, please?
Chelsea?
Jill.
Yeah. I agree with pretty much what everyone else has said. I've seen numerous fights, graffiti, vandalizing of the homes. I especially fear for my pets because I've come home and seen broken bottles in my backyard, and everyone's afraid to, say anything to the kids because they're afraid that they're going to retaliate against their homes, which I completely understand. So I'm in support of the closure of the alley.
Hello, my name is May Yasser, and I live on Clark Avenue. I received one of your notices for the Maiden Lane, and got curious because that Maiden Lane always concerned me. So I spoke to this weekend and found out what has been doing to my neighbors, and I'm fully in support of closing it down. And I personally experience kids that do come down from Parkside. They do fight, and then they take off. They fight, and they don't want to get busted, so they run down Clark, which is a steep hill, and they get cut right through the alley, and all of a sudden they disappear on El Camino. Where they go, God knows. I had to chase a couple of them down in my car. And once I got to that Maiden Lane, I had to go all the way around, and by the time I got to the other side, they were gone. And then I lived in San Bruno for 16 years, and literally really close to Maiden Lane. And I walk. And I've probably used it 3 times in 16 years. And it's sure enough, it is not pretty. It's ugly. You do see condoms used, and the graffiti, and what do you call it? The asphalt is broken, and it's not clean, and there's a lot of holes in it. So I don't see what's the purpose of keeping it open. It was built back in 1939. I could see a lot of people walked in and they might needed it. Or we're in 2012, and all it's promoting is a lot of gang activity, fights, and what my neighbors are going for, it should totally be closed down. I totally agree with them. Thank you.
Thank you. Patricia Toomey.
Hi, my name's Patricia Toomey. I live at 385 Elm Avenue, near the entrance to block number 1 of Memory Lane. I can see the entrance from my living room window, and even though my property does not abut the lane, I completely support my neighbors. I can see the nuisance activity from my living room, and I think it presents a safety concern for our neighborhood. I'm kind of interested the way that the lane has been characterized as some sort of essential pedestrian route for people to access downtown or access business. I've lived in San Bruno my entire life in the Huntington Park subdivision, and I never even knew Memory Lane existed until, as an adult, I bought my house on Elm Avenue. it's not essential to anything. It's not a shortcut. It's a convenience, but when weighed against the safety concerns, I really think it's probably something that has outlived its usefulness. If the council does feel very strongly that it should stay open, maybe at the very least this is an opportunity to fast track some of the beautification enhancements that seem to be in the future. Maybe that's something that we could do now. And just as a final comment, I noticed in the staff report, one of the comments said that the city should stop wasting money sending surveys on issues like this, and I just completely disagree with that. I think this is really important, and I wanted to thank staff for getting input from the neighborhood so that we at least, regardless of the decision, have a chance to say our piece. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom Dietrich?
Hi. Hi, my name is Amit.
Oh, excuse me.
Sorry.
I'll have to call on you. This man has the podium.
Yes, I believe I did this right now.
I'll call you up. I'll call you up. Tom?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and Mayor and Council. My name is Tom Dietrich, and my wife and I live at 417 Cypress Avenue. What I would like to say is that closing down Memory Lane is not going to change the behavior of these children. They're going to enact these kind of crimes and graffiti and bad behavior in other places. I fully believe this is a police matter, and it's a matter for the school to attend somehow to the behavior of these children. I do not see why the city of San Bruno cannot allocate officers on a regular basis to patrol that area on bicycles when school gets out. And I know for a fact that children who are confined all day in school, if they're released off in numbers, they're going to show off to one another, they're going to fight, they're going to skirmish. Of course they're going to behave badly. If police officers were there on a regular basis, just on bicycles, casually patrolling that area, I think it would defeat a lot of the harm that would come about every day children are released back into life from school. It's a wonderful release. So that's my solution. And I want to apologize to my neighbors who would like to close it down, because honestly, if the police and the school can't work on this and come up with a solution, this is an outrage. The stories that they've told here, they're horrific. Nobody should have to undergo this kind of abuse and torment and having rocks thrown through their window. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Angela, how do you go?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Angela Diego, principal of Parkside School. And perfect timing to address the last speaker. Parkside School has worked very hard to deter the children from this behavior. Unfortunately, we have not been able to stop the entire problem. We act in loco parentis for students that leave school to their homes. When we do hear about incidents, we are there. In fact, we are proactive. Mr. Little and I are known as Starsky and Hutch. We are in our car after school. We drive the city. We try to be proactive and stop any negative or illegal activities as possible. We also, if we hear of a fight, we know it's going to be at the lane. So we are here to advocate for the closure of this lane, Memory Lane. Memory Lane needs to be a memory, and that came from my office manager, because the calls do not go to the police department, they come to the school. Mr. Little and I receive many calls. We attend to them. Mr. Little can address how many students we have suspended and expelled. This is not tolerable behavior. We do not in any way condone children or teenagers behaving in this manner. What I need to say to the council is, shame on you for not shutting this lane already. Shame on you. If as a parent,
We want everybody to have their turn to speak, all right? I don't want to clear the room. So if we're going to have some outbursts, then that's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen. All right. Good for you. Do you want me to get the Sergeant at Arms to get you out of here? All right, thank you. Then let the speaker speak. Let the speaker speak. You have the right to speak when I call you to the podium. All right.
Sir,
That's it.
we're just trying to be
That's
courteous.
it.
We're just trying to
That's it.
make sure that everybody's courteous to each other during the process.
The process
Everyone's
here
going to
we're
get a
trying
chance to speak.
Trying to follow. Thank you. Angela? Sorry.
Okay, sorry. As a parent, when I was raising my children, and have been a parent for 30-some years now, and raised a lot of children through schools, when I knew there was a danger, I deterred the danger. For example, if the bathroom door was left open, you are leaving a potential problem. Child could drown. Why not shut the bathroom door and not have the problem exist? The same, it's a simple analogy, why not with the lane? I have begged for this lane to be closed. Since Mr. Little and I came to Parkside School, we have done everything in our power to make Parkside be a safe place and a place that will better San Bruno. We have worked very hard to do that. Drive up and see the new school. It's absolutely gorgeous. We did that to enhance school property. One final thought. I read a book, a research book. It's called The Tipping Point. A very famous mayor, Mayor Giuliani, in New York, took it upon himself to make change happen. Change is not pretty sometimes, and change needs to be done quickly other times. And in his tipping point, he decided that he was going to make New York a better place. He put police officers all over the place. He closed many ports, many alleys. Whatever it took, Mayor Giuliani did, and he made significant change. I'm asking the council to make this change tonight. And I'm asking you to do it as proactive adults to keep children safe. Do not give them a place that they are already familiar with and plan to have fights with. Deter them, make them move. It's a psychological tool that many people use in education and law enforcement. I beg you, please. I am sorry to the neighbors that haven't been inflicted. We have talked many times. I respond immediately. Mr. Little can tell you how many times we respond, how many students we have suspended, how many times we have spoke to parents and children. We are active in this. We would not be here otherwise. We are seeking for higher powers to help us. Close this lane.
Angela, I have a question for you. Sure. The city did a survey, but we received up here, it looks like Mrs. Adiego, Mr. Little, and the San Bruno Police Department want to know, when, do you know, did this go out to students, parents, or through a network?
This survey was conducted at actually your request. You sent the police chief to my office to speak to us about the lane. Mm-hmm. Part of that was to gather information, outreach from students and parents. We have a vehicle at Parkside that is called School Loop. It goes out to every single parent in the Parkside community, and we ask the question of what students and parents thought. There were many, many answers to the question. Children were even appalled at the behavior of their fellow students. We know that there are good people in the world, and there are people that suffer and have troubles and act out. Those students also told you that they wanted that lane to be monitored at minimum with cameras and to do something because they are afraid to walk through that lane. Students go there to fight. It is a known fighting alley. And I want to clarify, it's not just Parkside students. It's Cappuccino students, it's Taylor students, it's students from the whole entire area. That's a well-known place. And if we change the place, move the location, Do something. It's not that many steps from the lane to Genevieve or Cypress. If you put students on outside perimeters where more public attention is drawn to them, less will happen. Police officers can get there faster. More people can be witnesses. And more people can deter this kind of behavior. We're working on it from the inside of our school. Let's work together as a city and be a village that raise proper children. This is our future. I want students to grow up to be productive citizens. That's what we work on. We just got our scores back. 56 to 58% of our students are now reading at above college level. There are minimum students that need help. There are minimum students in the world where crime is. So help those by giving them not the place to fight, but moving them around.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Little, did you wish to speak also?
My name is Dan Little. I'm the assistant principal at Parkside Intermediate School. Mrs. Adiego stated that we are trying to be proactive as much as possible with the students. If a community member contacts our school, we ask them why they have not contacted the police, and quite honestly what they tell us is they don't want to be retaliated against if it comes to an arrest or some sort of court proceeding, so they contact us. Mrs. Adiego and I respond as quickly as we can to the location, but as you've heard many of the neighbors say, by the time anyone gets there, the children are gone. We have been all over the city trying to be proactive in terms of keeping children safe and the community safe from inappropriate behavior. Closing this lane would serve to help that purpose for every kid and for every community member in keeping San Bruno a very safe area and safe place for children and for adults. I would just implore you to consider closing the lane out of respect for the community and for the children. Also, I have recently in the news, there was a 10-year-old girl who went with a 5th grade student. She's a 5th grader, and went with another classmate, and they got in a fight in an alley close by to their school. That student then went home and later passed away from blunt force trauma to her head. I would hate to see that happen to any child here in San Bruno because of a fight that happens in the lane. And I have that article here to give to staff if they so choose. Thank you.
Thank you. John Minch.
Hi, Mr. Mayor, Council. I work for Grace Honda.
You can leave. There you go.
And which is, I guess, out towards the top here. We have a few issues as far as security of the lot. You have the fence, but then you have Memory Lane right in the middle of it, so folks can roll through. So, of course, when school gets out, all the kids roll through the lot. And every day we tie balloons up on the cars and try to make it as attractive as possible. So at 3 o'clock, the kids roll through, and probably about 50, 60, sometimes more, it seems to me. And they yank the balloons off the cars as they go along and let them go, or they just, take the helium out and, talk funny voices. And you think, well, it's just balloons, but, it takes, time and money to blow the things up, put them on the cars, and then they just rip them off and let them go. This one time we got like this stronger string, just by mistake, and put them out there. And kids would grab them and pull, and you could see it hurt their hand, and then they were yanking to get the things off. But it's just, we don't want to call the police and, report all these incidences, but it's every day. It's the same thing over and over. And we also have had several cars keyed, which is about $1,500 a car, over 10 of them. We've had wheels falling off cars just recently. And I think the problem is they didn't come from El Camino. They came through the back, took the wheels off the car, took them back out the back. Where it's dark, because we try to keep the lights low in the back. The lights are more towards El Camino. So, they could just under cover of darkness take the wheels away they go. And that was over $3,000 to replace the wheels. So for us, it's a big problem. Plus, when the kids get out of school and they're rolling across a lot, they don't just go down memory lane. They fan out and take up the whole lot, and it's not good for business. And again, I think as Mr. Corey mentioned, Honda wants us to build a new building. You know, basically we build a new building, new lot, we double our income. But the lane's a problem with Honda, so that's one of the issues.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was going to ask you too, you mentioned that Honda Motor Corporation, if you could step to the podium, please. Yeah. Honda Motor Corporation did ask you, you know, to do certain things in order to expand. Could you get the city some documentation on that so that we could possibly support that?
Possibly. Maybe Homa could speak to that more than I could. She's the owner of Grace Honda, so if you don't mind.
No, that's fine.
Great.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. We have had issues, as Mr. John Minch mentioned, but we've had issues, the neighbors have had issues, we have had issues. The problem is that vandalism continues, expenses are very high, and we are obligated also by American Honda to do the new image of Honda. And being that the memory lane cuts through the middle of the property, it makes it very, very difficult to do the new image and new building. And they're requesting, of course, to do a beautiful image, as they have requested many dealers, and they have, you know, we have to abide and we have to do that image for them. So, and for us, and of course for the neighborhood. I mean, you don't mind having a better building there, and our building is old and our property is old, and memory lane is in the middle. I like it very much. I appreciate it. I have kept it up to a degree that I could, and but American Honda is not satisfied. They want a new image. We are, as a matter of fact, we are obligated to do something by next year, and in about a year and a half, and we have to make that decision quickly because the remodel needs to start. And they're saying if you cannot give up the memory lane, we need to move on maybe to 101. So as taxpayers, I guess it would be difficult for the city of San Bruno to lose us. We hope that we can work something out so we could stay and remain. We've been there 30 years. We've been a good taxpayer, and we hope that we all understand that, you know, we need the business. We need San Bruno, and you need us. So we like to stay if that is something that we could do. But we need to do that image.
Okay.
For
No, I'm
American
just going
Honda.
to suggest that we are very concerned about the safety of our residents and people that use the lane and don't use the lane, but we're also very concerned about the economic vitality of our city going forward. So if we could get something from America Honda, you know, to you saying, hey, this is what we'd really like the ownership to do, just as an aside, I think the city would like to see that also. So we could try to help you along those lines.
Granted, we will
All right.
try to provide that for you.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Could you ask for clarification? Are they going to rebuild the old building?
Well,
Are they just
we'll talk about that. Thank you very much. Nate Martin.
Hi, I'm Nate Martin. I live at 441 Linden. The Dietrichs are actually my landlord. First, I just want to say that I feel for all the residents that live by the alley. I think I would probably have the exact same response if that was me. However, I mean, and I personally use it. I use a memory lane pretty much every day to walk my dog. I absolutely love walking up there. It's I actually like it because it's less busy than either Crystal Springs or Genevieve. And but I also see some of the problems. I see the garbage and the graffiti and stuff like that. So I basically, what I'd like to make is possibly a suggestion that instead of closing, maybe something can be done to just more lighting. I've noticed I usually have to walk my dog at 7, 8 p.m. and it's completely dark. There's no lights whatsoever on the alleyway. And, you know, of course, things are going to happen where it's dark and when people can't be seen. So maybe if we had some better lighting there, that could help cut down some of the incidents. And in addition, it seems to me from what I've been hearing that most of these things do seem to be happening right when school's letting out. So I just want to suggest again, more police presence right at that time, not waiting for a phone call, but waiting there at the lane. You can park a car, for example, just down on Linden and see all the way up most of the, at least one of the blocks, if not two. And that might be a good way to just prevent the incidents before they start. Thank you.
Thank you. Ron Gray? Okay, thank you. Looks like Jeffrey Shirtliff. Hope I pronounced that correctly.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to speak to the City Council. I'm very, very fond of Parkside Intermediate. I have 3 children who have gone there, one here in the audience. I'm very fond of the students who attend Parkside Intermediate. They are not different from other students. They have their energy and they have their shortcomings, but I'd like to say in defense of the Parkside Intermediate that that's a very small percentage. Most of the children are excellent. I'm concerned that the survey was not extended to Bel Air. Is there a good reason for that? The reason I question why the survey was not extended to Bel Air is I know many of the students coming to Parkside come from Bel Air. So of course, I assume that their families would want them to continue to walk from Bel Air to Parkside. And I think that's a really good thing for students to walk. My daughter walks to Cappuccino. Nextly, I know that the problem of graffiti, vandalism, loitering is a real problem for those residents, and I sympathize enormously. However, we need to remember that the same problems exist at Parkside Intermediate. At all the schools, there is vandalism, graffiti, and loitering. There's no reason to close Parkside Intermediate because of graffiti, vandalism, and loitering. Nextly, and really the main reason that I came here, is that public access to our community is absolutely essential. Absolutely essential. How could we ever, just fence it off? I think that's really a ridiculous notion, and I'm not overlooking the inconvenience that those adjacent neighbors have to Memory Lane. Serious problem. I commiserate with them. However, the public right to access, in my estimation, trumps all other concerns. Literally, all other concerns. If policing is necessary, good idea. If community involvement, as the resident said that he frequently comes out to paint graffiti, I think that's excellent. Community involvement, policing, lighting, enhancement with vegetation. All those things are wonderful.
Okay, you have to wrap it up here pretty quick.
Excuse me, I remember the minutes that you gave to this.
He was speaking for a group. So.
I recognize that. Once again, public access to the walkways and the streets and the public areas are essential.
Thank you. Heidi Beck.
Hi, I'm Heidi Beck. I live on Acacia Avenue. And I do walk Memory Lane a lot, have with my kids over the years. And I am just appalled at the behavior that some kids, teenagers are bullying the neighborhood into, bullying the city into closing a lane. I think that is just horrible that, that we are being held hostage to these kids. One of the speakers said, it's easy to find out what's going on at a junior high. I mean, the kids that do this kind of stuff, they talk about it, other kids talk about it. Why, these kids aren't being, why something isn't being done is appalling to me. And no wonder Parkside has the reputation it does. My kids went to Parkside. I've always in the past have said, it's not as bad a school as people make it out to be, but, then you hear stuff like this and then you think wow, I guess it's a lot worse than when my kids went to school, but, that's only a few years ago. I'm wondering, because one of the speakers said, too, that they'd lived there quite some time and it had gotten worse in the last 6 or 7 years. So I'm wondering, is there anything like with when the police station moved to Tanforan, did that make a difference? Because I live, on Acacia, and I used to see police on my street all the time. And since they've moved to to Tanforan, I don't see them anymore in my neighborhood. I see the Millbrae police more often because I, live on Acacia. And then another thing from personal experience, where I grew up, I lived a couple of doors down from a situation that was similar to Memory Lane. And there had been some problems. The homeowners actually got to the point where they went and, without the city's permission, closed off the street. They closed off the lane. Which then, of course, then the city got involved, and where police then became more active in patrolling it, and the problems went away, and the lane was reopened again. So I would really urge to please, if the problems are happening after school, get the police out there. Kids are going to cause trouble. These kids are such troublemakers. They're going to cause trouble no matter where they go. So they need to be watched. Thank you.
Thank you. Wendy Al-Muqdad.
Hi, I'm Wendy Al-Muqdad. We recently moved and bought a house on Hazel, and I love to walk. I lived in the city for a number of years and walked all over the city, and I found Memory Lane soon after we moved. It's been a little more than a year, and my son was in a stroller at that time, and I found it really convenient. From where I was, it helped kind of avoid some hills, and being in the city for a long time, you always look for where you're avoiding the hills when you're walking. I really do empathize with the problems that people are having. I would prefer if it could stay open. I really find walkability really important to my community. Maybe some temporary closures if needed to deal with the problem, but I think what I'm really more concerned about is, like the woman said before, the person that said, and the neighbor that said in the last 6 to 7 years that things have been getting worse. I would love I feel like there's very good things about San Bruno that attracted me here. One of those things is diversity of this community, and we also, because we have diversity, we have a lot of different people with a lot of different issues, and I just would love for our community, somehow, we're small enough, can we somehow deal with these problems, the core problems? I don't see kids, myself, as just the problems. They're usually manifesting problems, from where they're coming from. And I would love for us as a community somehow to address this. I would love for my son to feel safe, to go to all the public schools, including Parkside. I mean, I want to feel safe for him to go there. But just the community in general, I would just love for us to somehow come together and address this. I do know that one time that I was walking over there, and I was walking on Clark, I saw some kids in one of the duplexes shooting a BB gun, and they were shooting it where they had some cans on the corner of Clark and I forget the street. I stopped and I told them to stop, They didn't really seem to want to, they didn't want to listen to me. I did feel at that point, how much do I want to push this, for my own safety or whatever. It did dawn on me too, it would be nice if we knew as a community, what could we do in situations like that, where we feel like we're not going to hopefully get retaliation, but we could really help, like, let's deal with the problem, but also let's give these kids some other options too. San Bruno Park is a beautiful park, and I love it, and I love that there's all this energy and all these different ages and kids, and I just think that hopefully we can come together and deal with this as a community. Thanks.
Thank you. Scott Smith.
Mr. Mayor, my name is Scott Smith. I live on Poplar Avenue. I'm 5 houses from Memory Lane. I use it daily, and I think it's wonderful. I find it to be very clean. I find it to be graffiti-free. I find it to be safe. I am not having problems with the kids. But listening to my neighbors, you know, I feel for them. I know they're having some real pain. And I really don't think, I think we want to solve their pain. I think that's what our goal should be. I don't think closing memory lane is going to be the solution to that. I think some of the other commentators said that we're being held hostage by these kids, and we cannot give in to, you know, delinquent kids. That's not the right solution. They're going to find a way around it. They're going to climb over the fences. They're going to retaliate. They're going to see that they've won. I mean, it's not the right solution. I think we need to think about better policing, we should have zero tolerance policy. There should be no, you know, signs that say you will be prosecuted. Surveillance. There's a lot of solutions, I think, that we could put into place that might even be a little more cost effective for us than trying to close it down and police it and worry about fences and how that looks in our neighborhood. I mean, we are the city with a heart. We should not be closing down our walkways. We need to be pedestrian friendly. I don't want to see a chain link fence go up in my neighborhood. I don't want to see barbed wire in my neighborhood. I want to see the root of the problem solved, and I think we need to find other ways to do it before we resort to drastic measures. I think that's what we need to focus on. Thanks.
Thank you. Mike Bingham.
Good evening, Mayor, people of council, fellow residents here of San Bruno. My name is Mike Bingham. I live on the corner of Clark and Oak. And earlier, one of the council people said that the students leave down Niles, down Clark, no, down Niles, across my lawn, down Clark. They've done this for 40 years. It's the kids. This is not a memory lane problem. This is a kid problem. We've had people hang on gutters of my fellow neighbors. I've had rocks thrown through my truck. I'm on the corner of Clark and Oak. I've also had people tell me that at nighttime, they prefer to walk by my house, because if you know where I live, I light up the whole neighborhood, because it's motion lights all the way around. I don't have these problems. I've been here for 40 years. I've had paper routes that have gone through memory lane. I've run wheels and deals. Some of the people that are on the police force here look familiar to me. Grace Honda, I feel for them, but I also remember what was Bayshore Chrysler. Things do change. But this is not a memory lane issue. This is not a memory lane problem. This is a kid problem. The kids, every 3 years, they get a little more X-rated. 2 years go by, nothing happens. My garage door stays closed. 2 years go by, there's a cycle. There's a cycle of kids. Now, if it's for the principal who thinks that cutting and closing this is going to take care of this, once you close it, where are the kids going to exit off then? Where is the problem going to travel to then? This is not a memory lane problem. So with that being said, I would hate to have a permanent decision to change something for a temporary problem. We all use it. We're getting older. You don't realize the access that that's going to help you later on in life. I feel for the 8 people that live here. Probably when I was a paper route, I had some of them as customers, but it's the generation of the time. This is a problem with kids, not memory lane.
Thank you. Looks like Amit on Poplar. AMIT. He left already? Okay. Mr. Lubke?
Your Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, ladies and gentlemen, Alan Lubke, Fleetwood Drive. Why are you, Alan Lubke, up here speaking about Memory Lane? You live on Fleetwood Drive. Well, it wasn't that long ago that there was an easement on Fleetwood Drive at the top of the hill. And that easement affected four property owners, and the problems that were reported here were essentially the same. Of course, in this case, it was one of the kids in the houses that lived there that created most of the problem. But anyway, they went through the planning commission. They decided to close the easement and assign the property to the adjacent homeowners there. Now, what was the effect? Well, the effect, in my experience, it's been quite a number of years. I used to always take my dog that way, and I used to connect with the neighbors over on Sequoia, and it made a nice way to interconnect with the community. So I really, really sympathize here. Now, I want to take to task the introduction and the presentation of the so-called issue here by the city attorney and by the member of the other staff member here. Where's the survey map of this area? Where's the survey map? Is this an easement? What is it? Let's see it on hard copy. Please don't have another one of these presentations without presenting just exactly how much control and any restrictions the city might have in their decision making. That's fundamental for you hearing this. What are your decision making capabilities? We haven't heard from the fire department. Would it be unsafe to close it because you need to fight fires? Have you checked with PG&E and the sewage people to see if there's any, you would be cutting off any access? Very disappointed in the initial presentation here tonight.
All right, thank you. I don't have any more cards. Did everyone have a chance to speak tonight? Okay. All right. Council discussion on this. Michael?
To address Mr. Lubke's final concern, Mark, can you talk a little bit about what our options are legally in terms of what we do have a right to do?
So I think, as I indicated in my presentation, the city does in fact own fee title to all 3 blocks of Memory Lane. There was perhaps some confusion, was listed I think in one of the newspaper articles, that the city gave up an easement or there's only an easement over it. That's not the case. There was a vacation of a 3-foot strip across the Grace Honda parking lot, but the remaining 10 feet of the fee title still remains. So the city does in fact own fee title to all 3 of those blocks. So I think that answers Mr. Lubke's question. As far as whether there are utilities and other things in there, I think I also mentioned in my staff presentation that there is a sewer utility that runs at least across one of the sections of the lane, and just wait 1 second, I'll find it for you. While I'm looking for that, I can indicate what some of the options are. Hold on 1 second, let me get the easement information for you first. So the sewer line runs between Linden and Poplar in that easement location. So that would make it difficult, if not impossible, for the city to physically vacate the entire lane and then hand it over to the adjacent property owners. There are other options that we pointed out in the staff report you could consider, some of which have been raised by some of the residents today, and we're certainly happy to come back to you with some additional analysis of those options after we get some direction from the council.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay. Why don't we do this? Michael and I have been privy to a lot of this discussion for a number of months now, so, we've heard a lot of this before, and it's good to, get this public out here like this. So I'd like to hear from the rest of the council and see what you think about some of the things you heard and possibly, how to go forward. Irene?
Thank you. First of all, I appreciate everyone coming out here. We don't often see this many people at our council meetings, so it's good to see democracy in action. I have a couple of things I'd like to say. First of all, I'm sorry, I use Memory Lane almost every day. I walk up and down it, and for Grace Honda, my daughter and I use the Memory Lane to go around through your store, through the lot, and because I did that, I stopped and bought a car from you. So if I hadn't gone through there, I wouldn't have bought my car. So there must be other people who've done similar things. I do sympathize and empathize with the people who live on the side. It's not pleasant when people come through at night and there's noise and there's all those things that you're suffering. So I think the gentleman who said we should be looking for solutions for these people's pains is right on. I think there's a lot of things we can do. I particularly would wish that we look for things other than closing the lane. I happened to be at a meeting recently, and this might help or is something that hasn't been considered yet. This is called Safe Routes to School. It's a federal grant program that seeks to promote activities that increase the numbers of students walking, which is another issue, biking, as ways of promoting students' health and fitness and reducing traffic congestion around schools. It is a several $million grant program that we could apply for. It offers a variety of ways to get kids to walk back and forth to school safely with such things as crossing guards or other types of supervision. So I will pass this on. Unfortunately, our school district has not chosen to participate in this, but maybe we can persuade them to start and be a benefit to not just Parkside, but to all the students. Let's see. I'm wondering about, and I don't expect an answer, I'm just throwing out some observations. I too have been a school teacher for a long time and had children who went to Parkside, and I also went to Parkside. In fact, I originally went to Bel Air and walked up, and I swear I never walked on your lawn, but I don't think so. But it is something that, it is, as another gentleman has said, it is the kids. It goes in waves. It's not all the time. It's not every day. It's not all the time every day. So that's what I wish. I wish we can, and I'm sure we are able to find solutions that do not include closing the lane all the way.
Mr. Vice Mayor?
Well, I'm going to make some friends tonight. I'm going to lose some friends, but I'm just. The bottom line here is what I need to make a decision for is to put myself in the position of those 12 residents. How would I feel if I lived there? Whether I've got a wall facing the alley or whether I've got 3 feet facing the alley or whatever. Now, it's really easy to make all these suggestions and say police presence, lighting, cameras, whatever, 24/7. But all it takes at one time, and the solution fails. And I can't stop thinking about 12 residents that have to deal with that. And I'm not a walker, and no one's shown me what what the benefit of a shortcut or how much more they have to walk to get 11 blocks to Parkside or to get to Genevin or to get to Crystal Springs. So my decision is now how best to close Memory Lane, without making it an eyesore or not making it another problem area. I'm in favor of closing it, and I'm in favor of looking at a way to beautify it or or make these 12 residents whole. In addition to Grace Honda too. But I mean, living here, in a single-family community and having to deal with this day in and day out, it's unacceptable. I'm sympathetic, and I have a decision that that is mainly just an emotion that we should actually do something. And to me, the best thing to do is to close it.
Mr. Medina?
So I have, probably going to make friends as well, or not. This is the first time, not being on the subcommittee, hearing from the folks what they've gone through. I do appreciate everybody's coming here and putting into this concern, which is more than a concern. It's not fair and it's not right. I'm thinking back in my past, my immediate emotion would say, let's close it now. And I'm thinking back when I worked for the city of San Bruno and I worked at the Parks and Recreation Center down the street. And back then, you could drink anywhere in the park. You could park, there was no red zones when you drove through. And I worked in that building. There were gang fights. There was a stabbing in the bathroom. There was the police department closing it because they lost control. There was gang violence. Now, had I heard that then, and I was a city employee at the time, I was also on the Crime Prevention Committee, and we worked together with Parks and Rec, and we came forward as a community, and we made changes. The red zone, drinking limitations, not on the asphalt, reservations, drinking permits, etc. Had what I witnessed as I worked there, physically cleaned up the blood in the bathroom, watched the tire irons and the chains, I would have said close the park. And some people did want that. Some people had suggested closing and having gates at each end of the park. Therefore, you'd stop the traffic and the people loitering. Now, had we done that, it would have been very challenging for access, but that was a consideration. What I heard as a staff member, Beckner Shelter. We used to be able to park in there, then you couldn't park up there. Then they had a gate up there. Somebody once came forward and said, let's put a camera up there. Let's try to mitigate the graffiti and the activity. And I sat up here thinking, I don't like this idea. It's like Big Brother. But as time evolved, the graffiti and the vandalism to the site decreased, and the maintenance costs that the city incurred decreased as well. So the speakers that I've heard, very loud and clear, were to close it, and I think anybody else who spoke was not about just keep it open, but it was about we need to do something, and minimally we need to make improvements, and we need to fast track them, and we need to do it now. I heard from speakers tonight about streamlining beautification enhancement, policing during the times of concern and with schools out. I heard about putting poles to prevent traffic through there, because obviously it's too broad. I've heard about cameras, I've heard about lighting, and I've heard about signs. And where I sit at this moment, based on everything that I've experienced in my life and living in this community and working for this community, I believe I would like to see staff at least look into the enhancements that have been brought forward here this evening, see the effectiveness and the cost, before we just immediately say close it. I think sometimes we need to take a step back, and in my case, this is the first time hearing all of this information tonight. And we need to at least see what other option we may have. Maybe in the end, there is only one option. But I think for now, I would like to at least have the information back on the enhancements that were listed. And I know when I worked for Parks and Rec, I thought the city park was a place where Parkside fought, because that's where I broke up the fights back when I worked there, almost 3 times a week. So I think it goes in waves. It may not be a memory lane problem, and we need to try to correct it, and I think try to do what we can as a community to fix the problem first, and then see if further actions need to be taken. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael, 1 minute. Irene has a question.
I'm just curious, and I would hate to lose Grace Honda. So, however the decision comes about, have we looked as a staff or the city to move one way or the other the memory lane portion that goes through Grace Honda, move it once back or forth to accommodate the building, a new building?
Yes, we did. That was one of the suggestions that was made at one of the subcommittee meetings. If you know the configuration of Grace Honda on the south side, it's a zero lot line, so there's the Walgreens building that abuts right up to the Grace Honda property. On the other side, there's a little bit more space on the north side. So we did suggest that to the owner of Grace Honda, and they indicated they were not interested in doing that.
Do they indicate the reason for not being willing to look at just
what they told us at the subcommittee meeting was they were in favor of permanently closing the lane, and were not interested in considering that alternative.
Okay, thank you.
Michael?
Excuse me. Would it possible I said one more thing?
Uh,
I've already spoken. I'm Dennis Martinez. I just real quick.
You got 30 seconds, Dennis.
Okay. You suggest not closing the lane. How about enclosing the lane? And then you can cover the top, cover the sides. People won't walk through. They won't be throwing things at my house. They won't be throwing things in my yard. And you guys can take care of all the graffiti inside the tunnel, the lighting, whatever you guys want to do with it.
All
Okay?
right. Thank you. Go ahead, Michael.
Thank you, Jim. Obviously, the mayor and I have been thinking about this for a very long time, since it first came up several months ago, and you've all been very patient in waiting for us to go through our process, and so I do appreciate that from you. I think initially I told you that we would move on this quickly. It ended up being that we needed to do a lot of research on this, so I hope you realize that we have done a lot of our homework, and we've looked at a lot of options, and a lot of what we are hearing here tonight are things that I had thought a lot about what is going to happen to the problem when it's no longer in that little alley. It's going to spill over somewhere. I've been thinking a lot about that. Could be back in your park, Rico. I don't know.
It's our
park. I thought about what message does it send to the kids where we're telling them, okay, we don't want to deal with you, go somewhere else, we don't want you in this alley. What's it going to do to the neighborhood where neighbors used to be able to walk up and see their friends on the other street? I heard a lot of concerns when we temporarily closed another street in another neighborhood here, how it really fragmented the neighborhood. And I'd hate to see that happen. This is a really unique aspect to San Bruno, and I do walk the neighborhood a lot, and I go up and down that alley every now and then. Not a lot, but it is an interesting little thing that makes San Bruno different, and it makes that neighborhood unique. But having heard the complaints and the seriousness of what's happening in that area, and just thinking to myself, how would I like it if people were using the area next to my house as a thoroughfare and dropping garbage and doing that next to my house, and I don't think I would really appreciate that very much. It's a very unique thing for the neighbors as well, not just as an aspect of the neighborhood, but it is pretty unique. We don't have too many alleys in the city. I don't think there's another pedestrian-only alley anywhere else, so it is unique. It is a short section. I looked at what the impact would be to people that had to walk around. It's roughly, I think, for the longest distance for people in the neighborhood to get around to somewhere like Walgreens or to the front of Grace Honda would add probably another quarter of a mile, which for people with mobility issues might be serious. I know for most everybody else that's walking their dog or pushing a stroller, it's probably not that big of a deal. I've thought about all the different options that we could think of, and I don't know that there's anything that's going to be as immediate or as effective as just closing it. And the idea that we kicked around in the subcommittee was that we would do a temporary closure to evaluate the situation. I have no doubt that closure will resolve the issues that you're seeing. Again, there are other issues that were raised here tonight that I have thought about also, and we are going to have to deal with those issues. That's not the action that's in front of us tonight, but I'm glad that the issues were raised, and it is something that we as a council need to start considering in terms of what is our responsibility as the city's government to maintaining peace on the streets and guaranteeing that people are safe and that the students, it's certainly not the school's responsibility. Once you're done educating them and you send them home, they shouldn't be your responsibility. Do we want it to be a police matter? I don't know that that's the right approach either, but it's an issue and it has to be dealt with. Again, you know, something that I've thought a lot about, but you know, I think the mayor and I agreed that at least a temporary closure is a reasonable option at this time. And whether or not we revisit that at some future point, I think right now we do need to look at options, direct city staff to give us what our options are in terms of how we can close it and how long of a period we should consider a reasonable experiment.
All right. As Michael said, you know, we've thought long and hard about this situation, and do have a lot of empathy for the residents that get this direct insult. And first of all, I want to say I do understand Parkside's situation. You have a rough job. It's tough. It's not easy. You know, some kids are dealt to you that, in fact, have some systemic problems. You know, they're not all bad kids, and they're not all really good kids. But it only takes a few, as we've seen in society, how many times in the last number of months. It only takes a few to make everybody look bad. So, it's a kid problem, partially. It's probably not all a kid problem, but they're the ones that are being focused on because they're probably the easiest people to target. I don't think just closing it outright is going to solve a situation. I mentioned at our very first meeting, my concern was that you take a problem and you move it. I don't think the Grace Honda situation is really good. It doesn't make a lot of sense to have a public thoroughfare right through the middle of an outdoor showroom. So I think we have to work on that really hard. But I don't think we have exhausted all of our possibilities. As Rico made a very good point, a number of years ago we had tons of graffiti and damage at Beckner Shelter. Now it's a different situation. We decided to put in some cameras. We don't have that problem anymore. Once those kids see a flash, they're gone, all right, because they're easy to track, because they're going to go to school the next day if, in fact, they are the kids. It's real easy. Those are some of the things that we want, I believe I want staff to look at. I want to exhaust every possibility before we close something that, in fact, as Mr. Ibarra said, you know, we have single families that use that. And sure, should the residents adjacent to that lane suffer because people want to keep it open? No, they shouldn't. But that's why we sent out a survey. We didn't want to hear from just 8 people or 14 people or 20 people. We heard from almost 400. Well, we sent it out to almost 400 and heard from an extraordinary amount of people. So if we have to expand that, that's fine too. But you're probably going to get the same kind of result. 70% said, wait a minute, we don't want to close it. There's got to be another solution. And if closing it is the final solution, so be it. But I want to make sure we do that based on exhausting all of our possibilities. Staff has made some recommendations about what we might be able to do, and I would like them to aggressively pursue those possibilities before we make a decision on closing Memory Lane. I don't think we'll do it tonight, but I believe if the staff concurs and the council concurs, that we give you direction to exhaust those possibilities, see what the costs are for the city, and because as one resident said, it's fine to close it, but what are you going to have, a barbed wire fence or a cyclone fence or whatever, and then who maintains it? Do you have more problems? I mean, we have issues here dealing with ownership. Do we grant part of the lane to people so that they can put up a taller fence. I mean, there's all different kinds of little things that we could look at, but I think we have to look at some of those very seriously, especially it's a security issue.
Thank you,
City Attorney?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I think we've heard direction to bring the item back with a more thorough analysis of all of the different alternatives that you've talked about, and I believe that we can do that by the second meeting in March.
All right, and we did want to expedite this when we met in October, we met in December. Some of the logistical problems we had, you can't really research what's happening on memory lane if the kids are away on vacation. And so lots of little things like that, and you know, not to make an excuse, but I will tell you we're dealing with a lot of other things also. This is one of them, and we want to have a resolution to this, whatever it happens to be, to serve you properly. That's our main goal. We're working very hard at it. Unfortunately, one of the most frustrating things for me, as I've said for the last 17 plus years, is that government moves slowly. But when we're dealing with your money and your safety, we can't just shoot from the hip. We have to take it properly and do it the right way. So if the council concurs, I'd like staff to do a little more research on some of the very specific things you recommended and the cost of those things, and then we'll analyze that and base our decision on that.
To the chair, just to be clear, there is going to be a dialogue on closing the lane. What steps will need to be taken to close the lane?
Right. If the council directs us, we'll be happy to include that alternative.
I'd like
in
that to be.
analysis of it.
I'd like that to be an option.
Oh, it is an option.
Yeah, I think the mayor indicated that, but if we want to expedite, we want to do the homework, let's bring everything there forward to us. So the residents have waited, they've endured a lot, they deserve and need to get answers and know the fate of memory lane.
Understood.
Thank you. Michael?
One final comment. I know some of the solutions that were proposed were around lighting and providing more security in the area, but it seems to me that at least the more egregious offenses in that area have happened during daytime hours, where lighting probably wouldn't have made a difference with kids coming down there in large groups and fighting. The camera may or may not deter them if they want to show up there and fight. I don't know what action the police department can take for kids gathering, insulting their neighbors, being loud. I don't know if that's something that's specifically citable, and having their faces on a camera may not do us any good. So I'd like those solutions that the staff looks at to be in context of what the specific complaints were and how we would address those complaints, the ones that are at least documented. And if the public has any more specific issues that are more recent, that would be pertinent to what staff is going to be looking at, then we'd certainly appreciate hearing those. Thank you.
We understand that.
Okay. We have a very exciting meeting ahead of us if you want to stay, but I'm going to say we're going to take a 5-minute recess so that you can clear the room. Thank you.